So yesterday, we already made a video commentary talking about the most exciting and lucrative contract signing we saw yesterday, the Habs signing Lane Hutson to an 8-year contract extension beginning in 2026-2027 for $8.85 million a year. He signed for 8 years until 2033-2034. Still kind of weird, saying that. It doesn't really bounce off the tongue as well as I'd like it to. 2033, 2034. Oh man, we're getting old, folks. But Lane Hutson is signed on for the next decade, essentially, for the Montreal Canadiens at a very reasonable cap hit. 21 years old, coming off of a season where he had 66 points in 82 games played. This guy could be the next Kent Hughes, for all we know. But I wanted to dive into some other things that we didn't necessarily talk too much about in yesterday's Lane Hutson contract video. This was a pretty alright one. We read the press release and we talked about the numbers and stuff. All those numbers are still here. Lane Hutson making $11 million in signing bonuses next year. But there are a number of other things that I think we can add to the Lane Hutson conversation that fully indicate just how amazing this contract is and why it rules so hard. Let's go out there and just take a look at some of the numbers and look at what some of the analytical Twitter accounts are going out there and saying. JFresh said this, that Lane Hutson, signed to an $8 by $8.9 million extension by Montreal, is a young, top-pair offensive defenseman with sensational skating, agility, creativity, hands, and puck-moving ability. He is tiny, and defense has been a work in progress, but he'll be very good for a long time. And you can see that Hutson's wins above replacement metric number is at 91%. That's because his power play and even strength offensive numbers are at 95, but his even strength defense number is down there at 8. He's not the biggest goal scorer. His finishing and goals percentages are just barely around average, if not below average in the finishing case. But when it comes to getting assists, drawing penalties, controlling the play on the power play, and doing everything else offensively, he's a wizard. This guy is so dominant at controlling the blue line, moving around on the power play. He's a top pair caliber defenseman, and he's going to be paid like it as well, despite the fact that he's making less money than Jackson LaCombe and Luke Hughes. He also had this that was posted about and talked about by Dom Lucian of The Athletic. How Lane Hutson is signing an outrageously team-friendly deal, considering his skill set, age comparisons, and a rapidly exploding salary cap. Right now, Dom's model has the Lane Hutson contract at a positive value probability of 97%. Look at the number it says beside there. Lane Hutson's market value, $17.8 million. Now, of course, that's just what the model is going out there and saying. But the implication here is, if Lane Hutson was a free agent and every team had the right to sign him, he could get $17.8 million, and that would not be outrageous for the caliber of play he provides. So the fact that he's literally getting half of that is ridiculous. Take 8.9, multiply it by 2, that's 9 by 2, 18, minus 2, 100K, that's literally 17.8. This guy is making half of what his real market value dollar amount is, via Dom Lucian and his model. His offensive rating is 100%, his defensive rating, 33%, so his net rating is 96. Still, his offense is so good that it really counteracts everything that he doesn't do defensively, which is fine. He's an offensive defenseman. You're not expecting shutdown shot blocks from Lane Hutson. Let's go out there and take a look at some other fun notes. The Canadiens stopped mid-practice yesterday to celebrate Lane Hutson's new contract extension. And we didn't actually talk about this yesterday. That's kind of my fault, but the Habs practice stopped up and Hutson got his helmet removed. Everybody's going out there hugging the guy. It's some really heartwarming stuff. You can tell how close-knit this community is in Montreal. It's just kind of interesting because it's like, I guess the contract was done by his agent. He didn't have to necessarily sign the contract himself to get it done. He just let the agent get it done. Because they were in practice, right? Like, Lane Hutson didn't take a break from practicing and skating to go and sign a piece of paper. This probably happened while he was out there. So obviously, this is how contract extension stuff, how it works in the National Hockey League. This is what Lane Hutson's agent Sean Coffey said on the contract negotiations with the Habs. We were in Detroit, and it was Lane who pushed for the contract extension to be concluded. He never wanted to chase every dollar. He loves the fans and his teammates. He didn't want to become a distraction. He's well aware of the type of contract he could have gotten if he waited a year, but he never wanted to chase every dollar. There's a lot of noise in the market. He didn't want this to become a distraction. What an absolute baller quote out of Lane Hutson's agent, really shining a light on the heart that this guy has to stay in Montreal and not go out there and Mr. Krabs penny pinch every possible dollar that's available to be made. Eric Engels posted this, Kent Hughes' commentary on signing Lane Hutson. I had a conversation with Lane over the weekend, and he talked about his view on things. And it struck me, he wanted to make sure we understood how much he wanted to be here and how hard he was going to work. And I kind of cut him off and I said, Lane, there wouldn't be an 8-year deal if we didn't believe in who you were at your core. The kind of person he is and how committed he is to being his best version of himself, but also being the best version of a teammate. And yeah, that is absolutely wholesome right there. Lots and lots of love in the Canadiens organization for Lane Hutson and what he's got. He also had this, Lane Hutson speaking out his message to Kent Hughes. I have belief that we aren't far off from being a team that can be a Stanley Cup championship team. The belief that I have in this group, the staff, coaches, everything we have in place, I think we're headed in a great direction. We also had this, Eric Engels chipping in with his 2 cents. Lane Hutson was offered more, but he signed for less. He bought himself security and bought the Habs a bit more room to continue building a championship-caliber team. He wants to win. He could have held out for more, and he could have waited much longer. Not doing that says a lot about him. Pierre LeBrun had similar sentiments on TSN, saying that Hutson deserves a lot of credit. He wanted this done. He was a major influence on the sides getting together and getting it done. Gordon and Hughes stuck to their guns. They were not going to be influenced by other contracts that were out there. Cough, cough. Lacombe, Luke Hughes. LeBrun said that those contracts did not help in negotiations with Hutson, but the McDavid signing helped in one way, taking less to help ice a competitive team. That was part of the message from Hughes to Hutson. Take less, and we will be competitive for a while. I think a lot of people would have been able to connect the dots, kind of think about what Connor McDavid did for the NHL and its stars, setting that standard that says, hey, you don't need to be paid top dollar as long as your team is confident in building itself and using the savings that they get by signing you to a cheaper deal to become a championship caliber squad. Seems more like Connor McDavid in his situation gave the Canadiens some more leverage and gave Hutson the fuel to say yes to this kind of a contract. If you want to just dive into it, hey, the previous video went over all the numbers, so that's available on the YouTube channel. But let me know your thoughts in the comments about this Lane Hutson deal and just how good it is for everybody involved. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the like button. If you didn't, the dislike button's there for you. Comments help out with the algorithm, so I'd appreciate it if you got involved and let me know what your thoughts were. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.